We'll get going here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Schools and Communities First, welcome to the Schools and Communities First Community Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County, the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Stockton, Faith in the Valley, and the California Alliance of Retired Americans Central Valley Action Team. My name is Susan Mora-Loico. I'm a proud member of the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County, and I will serve as your forum moderator tonight. This evening, we will have an informative discussion regarding Proposition 15 and encourage you to vote yes on this vital initiative on the November ballot. The forum is being recorded. All participants other than the speakers and moderators will be muted. Our lead speaker tonight is the most amazing Helen Hutchison, a long-standing League of Women Voters policy leader. She is the most recent past president of the League of Women Voters of California, having joined the board first as a government director and then as the second vice president for advocacy and program in 2008. While serving at the State League, she has been active in strategic planning, initiative and referendum reform, human resources, training, legislation, ballot measures, and redistricting. Following Helen's overview, a panel of local leaders will briefly describe how the initiative will impact folks with whom they are involved. Then we will have a question and answer period with all of the speakers. If you would like to ask a question, just type it in the chat box and hit return. A moderator will ask the question for you. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce Helen Hutchison.
Thanks so much, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am going to share my screen here and get this started. So thanks again. And I'm really happy to be here to get to talk about my very favorite subject in the whole world right now, Prop 15. I'm going to do a basic presentation about Prop 15, and then I'll do a summary of the measure, and then an update on where the campaign is now, and that will make a copy of these slides available. I'll send them to the League people tomorrow, along with some other handouts. And so I hope they will be able to distribute those to people in attendance or anybody who'd like them. So most of us want similar things. We want good schools for our kids. We want healthy families and we want safe neighborhoods. But for more than 4 decades, big corporations have not been paying their fair share, which leaves the funding for California's schools and community services falling further and further behind. California now has some of the most overcrowded classrooms in the United States and some of the worst ratio of counselors, librarians, and nurses per student. Prop 15 is on the November ballot, Schools and Communities First, and it ensures that our schools and communities will come first with the resources to educate all of our kids and the services to support all of our families. We have roads that are crumbling, libraries that are closing, healthcare systems that are challenged to the breaking point. By simply requiring all commercial property owners to pay their fair share, Schools and Communities First will raise $12 billion every year for schools and local communities in California. Prop 15 changes the commercial property tax rules under Prop 13 and only the commercial property tax rules. So let me explain how the current law works. Property taxes are set at 1% of the on-paper assessed value, the sticker price, essentially the last time it was sold, the property was sold. Taxes are frozen in time until the property is next sold, at which time then it's reassessed. And that's true for both residential and commercial properties. The problem is that big corporations are able to hide changes in ownership and can go decades without being reassessed. And that results in a larger and larger gap between what that valuable commercial property would be paying at fair market value and what's actually being paid. That means a direct revenue loss to local government and public education. Our property taxes go to fund our local governments, our cities and counties, and our public schools. And so we've seen that over the last 40 years, without a change, it's gotten worse, and it's only going to get worse. Another problematic result of this current system is that two identically valuable commercial properties likely aren't paying identical property taxes. So we have an anti-competitive real estate market because we're rewarding commercial property owners who don't grow and don't upgrade compared to newer owners or those who do upgrade. So we have two properties that might have a fair market value of $5 million, that might not be reflected on the paper on their assessor rolls. One owner could be paying $10 per square foot and the other $35 per square foot, simply because the first owner hasn't changed or made improvements to the building or the land or has hidden changes in ownership. So Prop 15 would create a split roll property tax system in California for some commercial properties. That's what many other states do. So the split roll quite literally divides the properties onto two different rolls. Roll one would be commercial and industrial properties that are valued above $3 million. Roll two is everything else: residential, agricultural, and commercial and industrial properties valued at less than $3 million. Prop 15 would require that the largest commercial and industrial properties be reassessed about every 3 years, which would no longer have the requirement that there be a change in ownership to trigger that reassessment. Make sure that identically valued commercial properties are paying identical property taxes. And by untethering the property taxes from ownership, we make sure that those large corporations are paying current market property taxes. Prop 15 does not change the property tax rate. That stays at the 1%. And it means that even after Prop 15 passes, we're still going to have some of the lowest property tax rates in the country. In short, what Prop 15 does, it says, let's take a look every few years to see what large commercial properties are actually worth their fair market value and have them pay the same taxes equally as other equally valuable property. So how did we get here? One of the big drivers of California's inequality is Prop 13, which passed in 1978. At that time, property values were soaring, which resulted in hugely rising property taxes and people being priced out of their houses. Prop 13 created that current system by doing two things: freezing the property tax values and establishing the one fixed rate for all property taxes in California, that 1% rate. That helped homeowners stay in their homes, but the biggest winners have been the large commercial property owners. The result of Prop 13 was, and still is, major disinvestment in our public schools and local services, and has affected every level of government. Property taxes fund schools, cities, counties, and special districts. So some of the immediate tax breaks after 1978, Bank of America got a windfall of $7 million a year, Shell Oil $16 million a year, and Standard Oil, which is now Chevron, $47 million a year per year. On average, residential property turns over about every 10 years, which means that the taxes from residential property has increased. Commercial properties turn over less frequently, and those big, particularly those big ones, if they turn over, they manage to hide the ownership changes so that they don't trigger the reassessment. To understand the scale of the problem, it's also helpful to look and see that how much this unequal treatment of commercial properties is costing our schools. There's a few examples of reclaimed value, and I'm going to use some of San Joaquin County examples. San Joaquin County General Fund will get an estimated 25.7, so almost $26 million every year. So that's the county general fund. Stockton City would get 6.7 million. Lincoln Unified School District, almost 6 million. Lodi Unified, 19 million. Stockton Unified School District, 25 million. And your San Joaquin Delta Community College District would get at 7.2 million. So you need to also then remember that 92% of all this revenue is going to come from just 10% of the top commercial properties. So a few big properties are going to generate most of the money. Prop 15 reclaims that $12 billion for our K-12 schools, our community colleges, and our local communities. So how does that money get split up? Property taxes are collected by our county. We pay our property taxes to the county assessors. The revenue is then divided, and on a statewide average, it's roughly 40-60%, with 40% of the money going to public education and 60% for local governments. The public funding money that is going to be sent to a dedicated education fund, which is like a bank account that nobody, including the legislature, can touch. That money is then pooled from all the counties around the state and is distributed using the local control funding formula, the LCFF, which is a math equation that allocates public education revenue to school districts based on need. It's a key standard for most education funding in California. So the schools with higher need get more money. Those that are not as needy get a bit less money. Local districts will then decide how to spend this new money. And they have a 3-year plan every year that is rolling 3-year plan. And that process involves school boards, administrators, teachers, school workers, parents, students, and community groups. So all together making decisions about how best to spend those resources in your community. Every school district in California will receive increased money. The education money can be used for whatever is needed to best support students in that community. Of that school money, just about 90% of it is going to go to K-12, so that's about $4 billion a year. And then the other, just about 10% will go to the community colleges. And the K-12 money can be used for anything from school nurses to counselors to librarians to reducing class sizes. It can be used for any of those kinds of things. We could get iPads and computers for students. Community colleges, we know our community colleges, everybody lives near a community college in California. It's actually the largest higher education system in the world, California Community College System. It has more than 3 million students over all the state. 70% of the nurses in California attended a community college. So that Prop 15 funding could be used for increasing the class offerings or program offerings, or it could increase and have new job and technical training, whatever your community college district thinks it needs most. The local government money is then divided between counties, cities, and special districts. And you may have fire districts, you may have, I'm not sure what you have in San Joaquin County, but there are some counties have library districts or water districts or parks districts. And then that money will go into the general fund of each of those governments. And that, again, it's unrestricted funding, so the local governments can decide how to spend the money. And we as the community will be advocating for how we want that money to be spent. But it can include things like libraries and parks and firefighters, senior services, county public and mental health systems, housing, homelessness, public transportation. And because we're the League of Women Voters, I always try to mention the county elections offices also. All that revenue would have to be, all of it that's collected and spent has to be accounted for and publicly disclosed. And I'll say more about that in a bit. But just a recap, Prop 15 will generate about $12 billion a year. It's collected by reassessing large commercial properties through the county assessors. The revenue is divided between public education and local governments. And the education money is distributed around the state using an equity formula, and the local revenue will stay put within your county. The decisions around spending are made at the local level. Now, I can't stress this enough. Prop 15 keeps the Prop 13 protections for all homeowners and renters. Remember that split roll? When I said all residential property, that means that is how it's used. So it is used as residential property. If someone lives there, it's exempt from a reassessment. Doesn't matter what the zoning is, it matters what the use of the property is. So that could be a single family house, it could be a small apartment building, a large apartment building, a mobile home park, a nursing home. All of those things count as residential properties. And if it's residential, then it doesn't matter. It is exempt, and that's the end of that. That is it. All residential property would be exempt. Prop 13 also protects all agricultural land. The opposition is spreading lies about this. Throughout the measure, both in the intent and in the statute, agricultural and commercial agricultural property is exempt, meaning it will continue to be assessed the way it is now under Prop 13. The language is broad and explicit to ensure that agricultural land and property will not be impacted. It also exempts all land designated for open space or conservation uses. So remember that split role, which by definition keeps agricultural property in the totally separate category and not what Prop 15 is concerned with. Again, the agricultural property is defined as property that is used for commercial production of agricultural commodities, and it's an intentionally broad definition. Prop 15 provides a new business tax relief and invests in communities around them. It also exempts the vast majority of commercial properties, so we can invest in those small businesses. There's a fixtures and equipment tax that businesses pay now, and that tax will actually be cut. Under the current law, businesses have to pay a property tax on things like their equipment, their supplies, machinery, desks, chairs, restaurant equipment, computers, servers, all of that. Under Prop 15, the first $500,000 in fixtures and equipment would be exempt for all businesses. So all businesses are getting a tax cut for their fixtures and equipment tax. That reduces their tax obligation by hundreds of millions of dollars and encourages new business investment. Businesses that are included, so some more about businesses inclusion and exclusion. Our opposition likes to talk about rents. Rents are determined by market value and not property values. If property taxes actually determined rents, then in California, we should have some of the lowest rents in the country because we have some of the lowest property taxes in the country. And we know that's not true. It is the supply that determines the rent, not the property taxes. Prop 15 will also level the playing field so that small businesses that are almost all already paying more than their fair share will be on a level playing field. The small businesses are more commonly in commercial spaces that are paying at or near current market property taxes. So that means they're having to compete against companies who are actively avoiding reassessment to get to be able to pocket that extra profit. It's not a level playing field right now. It's an anti-competitive market. Two final points about the consequences of what's happening is that the reduction in property tax revenue reduces the ability of local government to provide the vital services small businesses need, like fire protection, community college programs, public transportation, and healthcare. Moreover, we all pay more in the form of increased fees and sales taxes and gross receipt taxes and parcel taxes and bond measures and more as a way to fund the kinds of infrastructure and education that all of our communities and businesses need to be able to thrive. Prop 15 gives local control of the money gives local control of that reclaimed revenue because we all know the issues that need to be addressed locally and how urgent they are in our communities. We need, and in order to be able to make plans, we know that communities need stability in their revenue streams. Property taxes are a really stable source of revenue, unlike the state budget, which swings wildly with the stock market and income taxes. And we also know the priorities vary from community to community. What I need and want for my community here in Alameda County may differ wildly from what you want in San Joaquin County. Or maybe there may be a lot of overlap too, but we know that we want to have some local control over how that money is spent. Prop 15 provides a stable source of revenue and empowers local community leaders to make those decisions on how to spend the money without needing Sacramento to tell them what to do. We have significant new revenue for rural areas, and there's San Joaquin County right there in that list. Accountability, and I said I was going to talk about this. Prop 15 ensures that there is strict accountability and transparency about the spending to make sure that the money goes directly to our students and our communities. There are the accountability and transparency requirements written into the measure. The local control over the school funding decisions and local control over school budgets identifies how the money is spent, and it will be subject to audits. The education money goes into a dedicated fund, and the legislature can't touch it. They can do nothing with it. It must go out using the equity formula to the local schools. I want to just reiterate that Prop 15 explicitly makes no changes to existing law affecting the taxation or preservation of agricultural land or commercial agriculture. And it is both throughout the measure and in the intent and in the statute, agricultural and commercial agricultural property is exempt, meaning it will continue to be assessed the way it is now under Prop 13. The language is broad and both broad and explicit to ensure that it will not be impacted. And the new tax relief, the $500,000 exemption for business personal property taxes, that tax on business equipment and fixtures, will actually provide a relief for farmers and agricultural producers. For businesses that own their own property with 50 employees or fewer, taxes, the personal property tax is completely eliminated. So that's going to benefit a lot of farms. The two-part test is, is that being used for the production of agricultural commodities? Yes or no, or is it used for commercial or industrial production? That's a pretty, that is the simple questions to be asked. This campaign is about people. Our motives are really rooted firmly in fixing a problem that has been 40 years in the making, and it does so in a practical manner that doesn't see the needs of our economy and morality as mutually exclusive. Our coalition is comprised of advocates on behalf of seniors, educators, faith and community groups, small business owners, students, janitors, doctors, nurses, and first responders, housing advocates, environmentalists, municipal workers, and people of every race and creed. We want to make sure that everybody joins us and helps spread the word to help us California recover and reinvest in our schools and communities. And I will just do a quick campaign update. We are doing active phone banking and text banking. There is a new tool for outreach to our own circle of our own contacts, and just started with a letter writing program. The best thing that you can do right now is to do personal outreach. Ensure that everybody you talk to, your own circle of acquaintances, know about Prop 15, why you are supporting it, and why it's important for all of us and all of our communities. I'm going to just remind people that there are 3 groups of voters. When you start talking to people, there are those who are the diehard supporters, like me. You don't need to convince me. I'll just say, yes, go out and tell people. There are some diehard opponents. And you aren't gonna, even no matter how long you talk with them, they're not going to be convinced. So don't waste your time on them. But there are people who either don't know or can be persuaded, and they're the ones we need to focus on. They simply may not know a lot about it or could be concerned by the scare tactics of our opponents. And I think we need to remember to call out those scare tactics for what they are. They are lies and scare tactics. So I think that ends my presentation, and I will turn off the share and turn it back to Susan.
Thank you so much, Helen. I appreciate it. So now I'd like to say I'm going to introduce our panel of local leaders to make the next presentations. First, we have Candelaria Vargas, a current member of the Stockton Unified School District. Tony McNeil, community organizer for Faith in the Valley. Margot Prowse, she is with the California Alliance of Retired Americans Central Valley Action Team member. Panel members, I'm going to call you out here shortly. Please comment briefly on what you see as the positive impact on Prop 15 for our community. Ms. Vargas, let's start with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak today. And for everyone who's joining tonight to learn more about this very important proposition. As Susan stated, my name is Candelaria Vargas. I'm a trustee for Stockton Unified School District. I also wanted to thank Helen for that great and very thorough presentation. I don't know how much more I can add, but I'm going to try. Very great information, very thorough. I'm proud to announce that earlier this year, Stockton Unified School Board voted to officially support the Schools and Communities First Funding Act. We're supporting this proposition because for far too long, our schools have been underfunded and our students really need the resources. I believe SUSD will stand to benefit greatly from this proposition. Our schools are funded mostly from state funding through the local control formula, and as opposed to local taxes like some other wealthier communities. So this measure will ensure that our students get their fair share of resources, and I think that's important to remember for our community. Some questions I have to pose for us as a community and as a state is that how can California have one of the largest economies in the world? We're like the top 10, always reliably in the top 10 economies in the world, yet we rank amongst the lowest when it comes to how much we dedicate per pupil funding. I've seen us ranking between 29th and 46th, and either way, we're in the lower half of per pupil funding, and I think that's unacceptable. And I believe that the community investments too that will go towards supporting our students' overall well-being. So our libraries and parks and healthcare services, roads, preparation for natural disasters, all of these resources will go to support young people. And how can we really expect our young people to learn if their basic needs and their community enrichment needs are not met? It's just very difficult. And I also want to add to that, especially in these times with the pandemic and COVID, our schools more than ever need the resources to keep our students, our staff, and our community safe when it comes to that time when we're ready to reopen again, because there's a lot that has to go into making sure that everything is clean, everyone has their proper PPE, and that we have the space. That's something that we've heard over and over again, is that space is really important when it comes to making sure that the transmission rate is lowered. And with a classroom full of kids, that's really hard to do. And so I just wanted to urge everyone to join SUSD in supporting this Prop 15 this election, to bring resources to our students that we've been lacking for a very long time. Thanks again for letting me speak, and I hope that was good for everyone. I hope I added something new to the conversation, but happy to answer any questions anyone might have to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vargas. We appreciate that. Next, I'd like to invite Tony from Faith in the Valley.
Hey, Susan, thank you. Helen, I just want to take you everywhere with me, like forever, period, because you are so bomb, amazing, on point, fire, as the young people would say, when it comes to just breaking down all of this information. It was phenomenal. And yes, we want the slides and the notes for the notes.
You get the notes, not everybody does.
Well, I need the notes too. Yes, this was good. And so based on all that you have covered, because you were so thorough with all of the details, I'm going to actually not even attempt to, there's no need to really cover any of that information again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step into my organizing lane, and I'm going to talk organizing, period. And so I jotted down a few things that I wanted to lift up from a Faith in the Valley perspective. So with the organizing of this is a state proposition. And so this is something that we need to cover on a state level and state ground. And what we want to do is leave no stone unturned. And so I loved it when Helen was wrapping up and she is saying what we can do. If you know that they're hardcore, like she said, you know what? Okay, let's save our energy and our vocabulary and our words for the individuals that aren't sure. So we should be talking to our neighbors. We need to be talking to our family. We need to be talking to our friends. We need to be talking to students that are of age or up there to understand, to share with their parents in order to make sure they're saying, you know, hey, mom and dad, we need you to vote for Prop 15. We need you to vote yes on Prop 15 so that it can get money in our schools. Faith in the Valley is doing organizing through phone banking. So we have volunteer phone banking sessions that are taking place every Tuesday evening and Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. We are taking any and all volunteers that want to come together and phone bank in a virtual space. You don't have to do anything but show up with your phone in a Zoom room and a link. And I'm going to make sure that Jerry has that information to disperse it to all that were registered to the call. If you want to show up, you show up. You will see me or one of the San Joaquin County organizers or another Faith in the Valley organizer, and they will walk you through the very easy steps that you need to do for phone banking. And so we're doing phone banking, just reminding people, one, register to vote, two, get out to vote, and hey, we need you to vote yes. Will you support Prop? Will you support Prop 15? And so we're encouraging and inviting people to do that. We're also organizing through pledge cards. We're sending out virtual pledge cards. So all of that I'm sharing, I will share with Miss Sherry. And so we're sending out virtual pledge cards, and those pledge cards, they work very, very well because they are gentle reminders. You can send a pledge card out through social media. You can send it out via text message. You can send it out via email to your friends, your neighbors, your faith-based spaces and congregations, co-workers, if you're permitted to, in order just to remind them, hey, would you pledge to vote yes on 15? And so these are just reminders that we're getting out. And it could also lead into dialogue. If they're not sure what you're asking, you can have conversation with them more about it in depth. And we're also doing a campaign that is called Friends and Families. And that Friends and Family, that's text messaging. So now we're sending out text messages to friends and family members. Once again, I'm going to send Jerry a text. No, I'm not, because she has a landline. So I'm going to send somebody a text, though, from the league that has not a landline. I think it's going to be you, Susan, in order for you to be able to share the text message out. But you can just text your closest friends and family. I challenge people to send either the pledge card or the text message to 10 of your closest friends and closest family members. I promise you, a lot of them, they're needing that reminder. They're needing to hear what it is you know. And we take for granted that everyone knows what it is we know. In most cases, they don't. And so we don't want to leave, like I said, any stone unturned. And the other thing is attending virtual town halls, educational spaces such as this one. So we will be sharing this. When we share this out, the League of Women Voters will share it, the recording on their social media page. I am notorious for storming social media with information. So I will also be sharing this video and recording from my Facebook page. And you can host watch parties with your friends on social media and share this information. Guess what? You don't have to say anything. Come and hang out with me in my watch party and let Helen recap on a recording everything that she just went over that was so fire that you just cannot formulate the words to. So those are some easy things and easy tools that we have. I will be making sure that you guys have access to information if you want to write it down. You can reach me at Toni, that's Toni, at faithinthevalley.org. So the logo, Faith in the Valley in the back, just spell it all like that, .org. That's Toni, Toni, at faithinthevalley.org. The last thing that I wanted to say, just kind of wrapping things up, is we do a lot of pushing and things when it comes to the voter engagement, and just pushing, and promoting things to be passed. However, once those things get passed, Candelaria, you don't even see us again. So then you have Candelaria sitting with the school board members, and you see none of our beautiful faces. Guess what? With Prop 15, that we cannot afford to have happen. We need to show up at the school board meetings, show up at the council meetings, show up at the city council meetings. Hey, show up at the town halls that I'm calling in order to find out, what are you doing with the funds that aren't going into the school? Or show up at the school board meetings and saying, yeah, we agree with this, but we would like to see other things happen. Join PTA. Encourage, show up at those meetings at the schools. We have to show up in order to ensure that the implementation of the funding is not just getting there, but now what ideas do you have that you would like to see put into place? What do your kids want to see happen? What do the teachers want to see happen? So we need to push it by sharing it with our family members. And then we want to share it through the organizing tools that I mentioned, but we also want to follow through with implementation. Once it passes, after it passes, we want to make sure that we get the park funding, the roads fixed, the potholes taken care of. We need to make sure it's going in the areas that it needs to be dispersed in.
Toni, you stole one of my talking points here, and that was that last one, and I'll just reinforce it by saying that the coalition that put this measure together has been working together for more than 8 years. Some of the groups have been there for 10, 12 years, and part of our commitment is that we're not going away when this passes. We are staying together to make sure that the money gets spent in the ways that we are promising and we think it should. As communities, we want it to be spent. So I look forward to coming to Stockton to campaign with Toni on that one.
Thank you so much, Toni. And finally, let's hear from Margot Prowse.
Hi, everyone. My name is Margot Prowse. I've been a longtime resident of Stockton, and tonight I'm speaking as a volunteer representing CARA, the California Alliance for Retired Americans. That group is the largest grassroots senior advocacy organization and represents over 1 million seniors in California. Since this high-tech online stymied me a bit, I'm going to ask Jerry now to share slide 1, please. I'm so excited to be with you talking about Prop 15. And thanks so much to Helen, Candelaria, and Toni for all the discussions we've had so far. I was asked how this proposition, Schools and Communities First, would impact the lives of seniors and why CARA is supporting it so strongly. And when we look at the needs of seniors, we understand how important this initiative is. Let me just share some stats about our community. In the US, around 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 today and every day for over the next 15 years. In Stockton, 10% of our population are seniors. 25% of those seniors live alone. 26% have an annual income of less than $20,000. 19% of the seniors are veterans. In Lodi, 13% of seniors received food stamps in the last year. 24% of the seniors are veterans. In Tracy, we have 26% of seniors who received food stamps in the last year, and 19% of their seniors are veterans. And at this time, California ranks 15th among states for long-term care and 29th for America's health ratings. When rising food prices take hold, as they certainly have now, or inflation begins, many older adults live alone and they have fixed incomes. That means there's no extra money in the households. They struggle with health problems and mobility issues that threaten their independence and well-being. Programs that are created to improve the health and well-being of our seniors are always facing potential cuts to their funding. It's just part of the cycle. And seniors certainly depend significantly on vital services, such as first responders, emergency services, police, ambulance, EMTs, fire. I was so saddened to hear this morning on NPR about a shortage of firefighter funding support that was lacking during the initial outbreaks of the current forest fires we're facing. That shortage made the fires so much harder to contain, and now, you know, we're all breathing the air and seeing the ash around us. Seniors have to depend on mass transit, street repair, potholes, cracked sidewalks. We need crosswalks, safety efforts, street lighting. Seniors certainly depend on public health. And we can all see right now that public health impacts us as we struggle with just being able to go about our lives during this COVID pandemic. But public health also deals with the everyday health of the community. Disease prevention, vaccines, education, outreach, clean food, which we all certainly enjoy, and healthy environments. We depend on mental health, in-home support services, long-term care, and again, very important, nutritional support. In the US, there are more than 10 million older Americans at risk of hunger and about 10% of adults experiencing malnutrition. And the list goes on. In order to keep and or expand the services we all deserve, it is critical that we increase revenue. So we're on slide 2 now. As Helen discussed, it's time to make commercial and industrial property owners pay their fair share. I'd like to just mention this one example that I just, I love and I kind of am concerned with. Disneyland, one of the wealthiest organizations in our state. Now, I'm not trying to demonize what we all know as the happiest place on earth and one of my favorite places, but it's a perfect example of a commercial property that will never be sold and will always be locked into paying property taxes based on 1970s assessments. That's from over 40 years ago. So the average home pays 40 cents per square foot with an average annual income of over $61,000, while Sleeping Beauty Castle, lovely as it is, pays 5 cents per square foot with a net income of over $42 billion. And let's move to slide 6. Being clear on what this initiative does and what it does not do is so important right now. Misleading ads are being put forward by the opposition, and we need to be sharing true information with everyone we come in contact with. And the next slide. Slide 6. Thank you. The ads are coming out. They are misleading. They are false. In August, a judge even ruled that they had to eliminate the false statements that the opponents are using. The truth is, Schools and Communities First initiative will not raise any residential property taxes. Let's move to slide 8. You can help pass this important initiative. It's important that you talk to your neighbors, your friends, your family, and they need to hear the truth from you first before the deceptive ads, radio spots, and mailings really take hold. We're all in this together, and thanks so much for being here and sharing your time tonight. As Tony said, let everyone know that we need them to vote yes on Prop 15. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you all, ladies, for sharing your variety of perspectives. Now we're going to hear from our audience. Again, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can within our time limit, and Jerry will handle the questions from here.
Thank you, Susan. We have several excellent questions. So I'll start off with one of the first questions, which is, are police departments prohibited from receiving revenues derived from Prop 15? Any of our speakers can speak to that.
You want me to answer? And police departments are funded by our cities and counties, and therefore they are eligible to get money from that. But it would be up to us, the public, to be out there. Tony's nodding too. So if we want the money to go instead into health services, then we need to be out there advocating for that. And I'll tell you that, you know, as a state league organizer, I'm going to encourage all of the local leagues to be organizing. And Tony, you can come knock on these people's doors and say, we want the Faith in the Valley and the league out there advocating for how that money gets spent. And Kara will be there too, along with all of the other groups in this organization. So no, the short answer is no, police departments may receive money through the local government.
Any other comments on that question?
I do. I wanted to add to that we have to also take into consideration that you know, organizations, you know, like SPD, for example, they make up 55% of our city council budget. So not necessarily hurting so much. When we have state cuts, our budget's already, state budget is already struggling with a large deficit. A lot of funding goes into public safety, but not public health and in a lot of the areas that all of these women have lifted up. So we just want to be very mindful of that when we are approaching organizing, that those that have typically say they need, and those that have not typically don't show up. And we want to show up and say, hey, we have needs here.
Very good. Here's another question. What is the downside of Prop 15? For example, what is the projected impact in terms of employment as corporations are expected to pay out an increased tax bill at any time when the economy is already stressed in many ways? Might that tip some business into insolvency?
I'll start again. I'll say that it is possible that there may be some businesses that go out of business. I haven't heard of any actual examples of that. There is a quite reputable study that was done by the University of Southern California, USC Business School, and that says actually this will generate jobs. By putting money into local governments, we will generate jobs. We know we need more public health people. I mean, and so those are good jobs. We know we're going to have to hire assessors. Those are good jobs. We know our infrastructure is crumbling. Anytime I drive to Stockton, I feel like I need a whole new alignment, right? So we know there's going to be jobs generated by putting this money back into our communities.
Other comments on that question?
I'd just like to say that sometimes businesses look beyond that. They look for their employees to have a good school district, to be in a place where they want to be somewhere where the services are provided. So funding is very important for all those issues.
And Jerry, I wanted to also add, for example, Disneyland. I love that, Ms. Margot, that you listed that up, because Disneyland is actually in support of and is now a supporter of Prop 15. And so there was a huge news article in the LA Times saying that they are also a backing of that. We're talking about major corporations that this is going to be a fraction, like not even a whole 10% of the budget that a lot of these corporations make. And so it's not necessarily going to knock a dent in their organizational structure. So yeah, I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind.
I'd like to share a little that I heard that some of the newer businesses are actually supporting this as well, because that really makes it fair for them, because they're, especially our newer startups, Netflix, a lot of our Silicon Valley newer businesses are supporting it too, because this actually evens out the playing field for them. Whereas so they're paying closer to their fair share of taxes, whereas other businesses that have been along for way longer are not, because they're just older and they've been able to pass things down, because corporations, unlike people, don't die.
Good point. Okay.
Well, let me just add one more thing. Chevron has not been giving us a Prop 13 discount on gas. And so
No.
Lisa and I have noticed, but they're just pocketing that extra money.
Good. Here's another question. Where do nonprofits go, or how are they affected in the two-role split? Some of our religious houses have a property worth over $3 million.
Nonprofits continue to be exempt. They're exempt from, nonprofits are currently exempt from property taxes and would continue to be exempt from property taxes.
Do you anticipate that faith communities would be affected in other ways?
They would have healthier communities that they are surrounded by. I think it benefits all of us to live in a community which is thriving and healthy. And so I do think, therefore, our faith communities would be healthier and thriving also. But Tony could probably speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, because with faith communities, we have a servant mentality within our faith communities. We can't help to. And so we're constantly trying to meet the need. And what's interesting is we find that in the community on governing levels, they actually look to faith communities to take up the slack for where it is that they're lacking. And so this is actually going to even the playing field in that narrative too. Because that means that not only are the bigger corporations not paying their fair share, but we're also in a faith institutions sowing additional funds from our pockets in order to help compensate for what is lacking within our schools and in our communities. And this is going to help free some of that up too.
So here in San Joaquin County, what are the major property owners that will pay substantially more property taxes under Prop 15? Anybody know?
I haven't looked into that. I don't know. I do know we do have a lot of industry, but I don't know.
The one that comes to mind that I want to lift up would be, there are a lot of abandoned and vacant industrial lots that have been abandoned and vacant with nothing on them, lots of squatters and maybe tents that are there in some of our, especially south, areas. And a lot of those fall under this bracket, and it would incentivize those property owners that aren't even local to actually do something with the property or sell it and allow grocery stores, maybe in food deserts, to actually go up. And so consider that.
Good. Can you speak to who are the major financial supporters of Prop 15, and who are the major financial supporters opposing Prop 15?
So the supporters include the teachers unions and Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Those are the ones that I'm thinking of. I'm sure there are more, but if you looked at votersedge.org, you could find out funders. I'll put in a plug for the League's voter guide on votersedge.org. And the opponents, it's the business roundtable, so business interests. And I'll point out that a lot of that money is coming from out of state. They're washing money through the business roundtable, but it is out of state money.
Any other comments?
I think most of the unions are on board with this. Cara represents retired members of most unions, and it's pretty widespread. I don't know beyond that.
Yeah, SEIU, and SEIU is a funder also, so I'd forgotten SEIU. Thanks, Margot. But yes, the unions, but the big funders that I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know. Here's a question. How do we legally challenge the lies that are perpetrated by No on 15?
It's really difficult. We did it with the lies that they put in the official voter guide. And that, thank you, Margot, for pointing that out. The opponents were actually, it's the first time I've ever seen where somebody had to remove whole sections of what they wanted to put in the voter guide because it was out and out lies. Now they have some radio ads and some that are perpetuating lies. The best thing that I think we can do is to talk to friends and neighbors and call them out on it. They're using lies and scare tactics. That's the only thing that they have going for them are lies and scare tactics. And that's a pretty low kind of a campaign to run. They don't even have truth that they can run on.
And I want us to be mindful that they have target audiences that they use these false narratives and tactics on. So I was extremely appreciative, Margot, of the presentation that you shared for the senior population, because this is a population that is very intimately aware of, regard to Prop 13 and the benefits of that. And it is also the biggest targeted population that the supporters or the opponents of Prop 13, they target so they're targeting my mother, they're targeting grandmothers, they're targeting homeowners that are frequent voters in their messaging on social media and advertisement as well.
And their goal is to strike fear in them. People become very fearful. Oh, my rent's going to go up. Oh, I'm going to lose my home. Oh, this or that or the other thing. And the ads are lies.
Right, and we could spend a lot of our time fighting that in court, but we have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of energy. And is it better spent challenging that in court, or is it better spent talking to our friends and neighbors and being trusted messengers and saying, those are lies?
I must say that the ads that are out on Yes on 15 are very good.
Good. Here's a good question. Does local funding come only from local properties and stay in local communities? Do wealthier communities pool any money?
So property taxes generally stay within the community. School funding is the one exception, and that is because we had court rulings and now we have laws about equitable funding for all of the schools in California. You are there in the Central Valley and you know that your schools are not getting as much money as schools in Menlo Park and Palo Alto, because they have richer communities and so they pay more. And we as Californians have said that is not the way we want to treat our future Californians. We want all of the children to be able to have quality educations. So that's why the education money is being distributed and being spent for all of the kids and redistributed. But yes, the answer is overall property taxes, because they generally stay within the community. Richer communities can have more services. And yeah, I'm not going to go further on that one because we're not, this measure is dealing with one piece. We don't say we're going to fix the whole tax system in California. We are fixing one piece of the tax system in California. One big piece, but it is one piece.
Other comments on that question?
Thank you, Helen.
Okay, what about how will renters be specifically protected under Prop 15?
The place they live in will not be reassessed unless it is sold.
And
Yeah. As
having
I
a
understand,
Okay.
go ahead.
no, well, as I understand it, all residences, apartment buildings, houses, everything is included in residential and will not be part of this.
Okay.
And if we do organizing, once this is passed, then we could also, look in the future towards setting up maybe some trust funds, for or affordable renting, different things. So there are perks that could happen when it comes to affordable housing and renting, if this were to pass.
When it passes. This is a related question for small businesses. Opponents say that small businesses that lease from larger corporations will be affected as their rents will increase. How will this be mitigated?
So there's two pieces. One is that small businesses are going to get the equipment and fixtures tax reduced. That's number one. And number two is that if a property is occupied by, and I can't remember the percentage, I think it's more than 50% of the property is occupied by small businesses, the reassessment isn't going to happen for another 5 years. It is a longer period of time for business properties that are mostly occupied by small businesses. So they have a longer time to plan.
Mm-hmm. What will happen if Prop 15 doesn't pass?
It's not going to happen. We're going to pass. Tony, you're muted.
It was probably good that I was trying to, that's heresy. I can't fathom or even imagine that it wouldn't. So yeah, I couldn't even imagine that not happening.
Candelaria has a.
Yeah, I'll share. So we've been looking as a school district at, we all know that even before COVID, folks were projecting a recession again. And now with COVID, we're already seeing the effects of that, and that all really impacts our school budgets. So statewide, we were looking already before COVID, statewide, at budgets being cut and different, like our COLAs not being funded. The increases each year that we give our staff, we're not going to be funded by the state. So we were going to be looking to pay that on our own. And fortunately, things have not been as bad as we anticipated them to be earlier this year because of COVID, but we're still projected to see less and less resources because of that economic projection. And it's not good for our schools. And most of our funding funding is personnel. And we already know that our class sizes are not great, and our student to counselor ratio, though it has improved, still needs to improve more. So we have a long way to go for things to be where they need to be. So to not pass this would just put us in a deeper hole than we're already facing. The Funding Act would actually help, but we still need I think it was Helen, I'm not sure who said it, that it's not going to fix all the aspects of our tax system, but it's going to help. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, because like both Helen and Tony said, I don't want to have to imagine making those very, very difficult decisions.
Mhm. Okay, I think we have one more question, unless the participants, if you have any questions, do put them in the chat box. But let's go with this question. Could you say more about the means for calculating how much of the total goes to an individual county? It sounds like some counties would be net losers and some net gainers compared to the actual money generated through the tax.
So the money generated will be on our property tax bill, on the property tax bill. So all property taxes go to the county assessors. We're going to get pretty wonky and detailed in this, so just hold on. The increased money, and this there's going to have to be a discussion with the Board of Equalization and the legislature and the assessors to figure out, what the actual increase is. Will then be divided. And it will be divided within each county between the school money and the local money. And the school money will go to the fund in Sacramento and be redistributed around the state. And the local government money will stay within the county. And so overall, yes, some counties will be paying more into the school fund than they will be getting back because they have relatively wealthy school districts. And I will tell you that there are those people in those school districts and in those counties are not happy about this. They think somehow that because their cost of living is slightly higher, that their teachers should be paid more and their schools should get more money. I don't buy it. I want the kids that really need the money, and I can, I'm looking at Candelaria because I know that the Stockton schools are one of the districts, and so those kids need an increase in money. And that's what the equity formula does. I am a strong believer in that California equity formula, and so it is a piece of it. So the answer is yes, that some counties will be giving more to the education fund than they will be getting back from the education fund. That is part of what we do when we distribute things equitably around the state.
Yeah, I'll say amen to that. We are, and we receive, like I mentioned earlier in my statement, most of our funding for SUSD comes from the state. And I will share that over 70% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And that's such a high number that we have made 100% free and reduced lunch for all of our students, so that no one even has to worry about, doing whatever they have to do to make sure that they, get that done. And so yes, you're right, that a lot of our funding does come from the state, and because we need it.
Other comments on that question? Okay, I think that's the end of our questions. Thank you, participants, and I'll send it back to Susan.
Okay, thanks to all our participants and those of you who are attending. We appreciate the informative program that we've just heard. And I'd like to just say this is just one of many activities that the League sponsors to educate our community. The League was founded following the passage of the 19th Amendment to help those first women voters register to vote and to learn how to vote, to study the issues and become more informed. That tradition is still our foundation. Membership isn't limited to just women. We have male members as well. There are also student scholarships available, and you can become a friend of the League. To learn more about that, please check our website by Googling League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County. And I would like to conclude by saying, if you learned anything from this program, I have a question for you. And that is, why aren't you a member of the League? That brings us to a close to our forum, and I thank you all for listening in, and I thank all of our speakers and our presenters. And remember to vote on or before, preferably November 3rd, and we urge you to vote yes on Proposition 15. And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, and thank you for all of our participants, and thank you, Jerry, for herding cats.